Fetal alcohol syndrome, also known as FAS, falls under an umbrella also known as fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, or FASD. FAS and FASD are categorized by patterns of physical, developmental, and functional problems caused by mothers who consume alcohol during pregnancy. No evidence exists as to how much alcohol is dangerous to the fetus. However, research shows that mothers who drink during the first trimester have children who exhibit the most severe signs and symptoms associated with FAS. Unfortunately, during this early period, many women may not even realize they are pregnant. Also related to this exceptionality are conditions of alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disorders known as ARND and fetal alcohol effects known as FAE. Individuals with FAS will show both physical and cognitive signs and symptoms. However, those who have ARND and FAE only display the cognitive symptoms. It is estimated that there are 30,000 children born with FAS every year. An additional 40,000 are estimated to have FAE or ARND. The severity of physical symptoms range from mild to severe and can include a small head-to-height ratio, below average height and weight, a smooth ridge between the upper lip and nose, small eyes, a very thin upper lip, deformed limbs and fingers, a decreased range of motion, vision and hearing problems, and skin folds at the corner of the eyes. Cognitive impairments also vary in severity. They include mostly behavioral issues such as impulsivity, violence, aggression, lying, stealing, destructibility, problems with learning, hyperactivity, language development, and delayed development of gross and fine motor skills. Unfortunately, many educators and parents dismiss the cognitive signs of FAE and ARND as behavioral issues because not all children display the physical signs associated with FAS. This would cause many teachers to misinterpret this behavior as disruptive when there are more accurate interpretations. For example, what teachers may view as attention-seeking and stubbornness is actually the child's difficulty translating verbal directions into actions. Willful misconduct is actually the inability to link cause and effect. Instead of viewing a child as irresponsible and lazy, teachers should be aware of the child's memory deficits. Teachers should understand that what they may view as a child's laziness and slowness is actually the child's difficulty in grasping the abstract concept of time. A student's poor judgment actually comes from an inability to interpret social cues from peers. When a student steals, what teachers see as deliberate dishonesty should be interpreted as a lack of understanding of ownership. Lying should be recognized as an inability to accurately recall events because of memory problems. As teachers, we must remember to follow the ethical standards for the teaching profession according to the Ontario College of Teachers. The first ethical standard of care entails teachers showing empathy, compassion, acceptance, and interest for developing students' potential. Teachers must demonstrate their commitment to students' well-being and learning. They should treat students equitably and with respect and should be sensitive to factors that influence each student's learning. As teachers, we must do our best to be aware of many different conditions that children may be affected with. The difficult part of FAS is that it may mimic other mental and physical conditions such as ADD, ADHD, and other behavioral disorders. The second ethical standard of trust embodies fairness, openness, and honesty. Teachers' professional relationships with students, colleagues, parents, and guardians are based on trust. Therefore, as teachers, it is not only our responsibility to try and understand different conditions that children may be affected with, such as FAS, but also to develop a strong trust relationship with parents, colleagues, and other school professionals through frequent communication and by addressing any new behaviors or challenges the child might be displaying at school in order to collaboratively bring about the best plan to help each individual child. The third ethical standard of respect entails fair-mindedness and trust. There is often a stigma attached to FAS, and many students who have it, as well as their families, may be faced with prejudiced ideas in school and in the community. Sadly, many students with FAS may be mistreated by their peers and teachers because of the label they have been given and the lack of understanding surrounding this exceptionality. Consequently, this can create secondary diagnosis in their mental health and well-being, such as addiction or depression.
Teachers must honor human dignity, emotional wellness, and cognitive development. Teachers could post posters about FAS, drinking, and pregnancy around the school, as well as include information about FAS in health, science, and physical education classes in order to spread awareness and encourage acceptance. They should also hold assemblies as well as have class discussions and provide resources such as books in order to talk about the effects of alcohol on a person. It is our responsibility to treat all of our students fairly, and we must model respect for students who suffer from FAS. The last ethical standard of integrity includes honesty, reliability, and moral action. As teachers, we must always reflect on our teaching practices in order to be aware of any mistakes we have made in the past and any areas we can make improvement on. Because children with FAS may not have a diagnosis when they enter a classroom, teachers may confuse FAS symptoms with behaviors such as laziness or defiance, when in fact the student may actually not understand the teacher's instructions due to their conditions. Because of this, it is essential that teachers are committed to having information on FAS and ongoing professional learning, as this is a key component to being able to recognize a student suffering from FAS.
Teachers should experience a paradigm shift when they discover that their student has fetal alcohol syndrome. Fetal alcohol syndrome can be very frustrating and overwhelming for both the student and the teacher. Depending on the regional location, the amount of FAS students may be high, such as in Manitoba, Alberta, and the Yukon. Teachers have found the traditional techniques ineffective in teaching these students. According to the government of Yukon, students with FASD have permanent difficulty with the input, integration, storage, and retrieval of information. In the light of that challenge, it is easy to understand why they have such difficulty understanding and making sense of daily life, which is almost entirely based on understanding abstract concepts. People with FAS have poor abilities to adapt to the demands of their surroundings. Because students have poor sensory processing, teachers should create a calm, quiet environment. They can reduce decorations, posters, and displays on the walls, and use window coverings to reduce the effects of noise, temperature, and light. They can use a neutral colored carpet and tennis balls on the ends of furniture legs to reduce noise on the ears and the eyes. Teachers can also arrange classroom furniture to create traffic patterns that discourage running and decrease students' tendencies to bother each other. Teachers should provide deep pressure activities for their students to practice motor skills. Because FAS students require structure, teachers should organize the space and furniture for flexibility in instruction. They should also organize personal workspaces to promote organization and develop independent work habits. Teachers should develop consistent routines that support learning and develop expectations in everyday routines with the help of lists. Teaching time management skills is very important. Teachers should also manage the environment to avoid social problems and structure the environment to accommodate active behaviors. This means teachers should give breaks for movement during the day. They should ensure smooth transitions from one activity to the next to reduce behavior problems. Using a familiar procedure can also help students remember. Because students with FAS have a difficult time learning with abstract concepts, teachers should use concrete language to teach. Concepts are concrete when they name a real thing or a group of things, but concepts are abstract when they express a quality apart from an object. For example, be a good girl, or clean up your room, or get in line. Abstract concepts cannot be measured. Teachers should simplify instructions to their students. Teachers should create concrete ways to teach time concepts. Teachers should also use visuals to support instruction. They should use role-playing and practice in context. Students typically display three behaviors: lying, stealing, and a lack of cause and effect reasoning, so teachers should directly teach the concepts of true and false, real and imaginary, and fiction and non-fiction. Teachers should establish clear rules and use concrete words to describe behavior. Teachers should be using language and nonverbal communications that students understand, including pictures. Because students with FAS may find it hard to focus and attend, teachers should think of special instructional techniques to get their attention. Students should be allowed to move and use non-traditional approaches to eye contact during listening activities. Teachers should use low-key cueing to encourage students to stay on task. Teachers should integrate memory aids into each learning activity. Because students will have to become functioning members of society, teachers should create a supportive learning environment to develop social skills. They should develop a plan for changing challenging behaviors and enlist the help of positive reinforcements such as family and friends. Teachers should find opportunities for practicing fine motor skills and computer skills. Teachers should enhance the teacher-student relationship and understand that students use behaviors to communicate. Teachers should notice and reward positive pro-social behaviors, change rewards often to avoid loss of interest and saliency, and protect them from exploitation from negative peers because they are naive. Educational experiences should make students as independent as possible. Students with FAS should go beyond classroom boundaries and target skills to be used not only at school, but in homes and communities as successful, productive citizens. Students with FAS should have focus on community-based instruction. Teachers can use a SCORES model to help plan strategies and interventions for students. The SCORES model entails supervision, structure, simplicity, support, and success, communication and consistency, organization, rules, expectations, and self-worth. Teachers can also use SOAP to help students. SOAP stands for Stop the Action, Observe, Assess, and Plan. If teachers note the learning and behavior problems students are having, Alberta Learning advises us to do the following. They can first try the usual approaches to adapting instruction and modifying behavior. If that doesn't work, they document concerns in writing. Next, they ensure all necessary academic and psychological testing is conducted in order to obtain a complete picture of the student's strengths and needs. Then they meet with parents to share test results and concerns. Arrange for a designated person from the school, either the psychologist or counselor, to meet with parents to suggest a follow-up medical evaluation to obtain more information, and finally assist with a diagnostic medical evaluation by completing informal interviews, behavioral rating forms, and sharing school records and performance information. Here are some questions that teachers might want to ask parents, previous teachers, or others familiar with the student to help plan strategies to meet the student's needs. What part of the day appears to be the most productive for the student? What part of the day is the least productive? What skills and interests are strengths for the student? Which class activities does the student enjoy the most? Can these activities be alternated with those that he or she finds more difficult? To what extent is this student able to follow classroom routines independently? How can he or she be assisted to develop more independence in this area? To what extent is this student able to work towards the learning outcomes of the provincial curriculum? In which areas can the instruction and assignments be adapted to support the student's learning? How does this student interact with their peers in the classroom? With which students are they able to work the most productively? What kinds of events or activities seem to cause the most anxiety for the student? How can the student be helped to cope with these situations? What are the student's triggers? What helps the student to calm down? Are transitions hard for the student? And is the student sensitive to sensory issues? FAS varies between student to student. Teachers can't generalize one IEP for every FAS student in the class. This is a presentation by Joe, a grade 7 student with FAS. It is called This Is My Kind of Mind. Some things are easy, some things are tricky. What's easy for me is reading, math, phys ed, and making and keeping friends. What's tricky for me is writing, handwriting, and keyboarding, and getting my ideas down on paper. What my brain really likes is figuring things out by looking. I am excellent at designing and making, building, or drawing things. I am also excellent at understanding what I see. Puzzles, maps, pictures, games, knowing where things are. This means showing me things is a good way to teach me. My brain is also excellent at understanding what I hear, if it is interesting, if I am tuned in before you start talking, and if you keep the talking short. Too many words and my brain tunes out. My brain is also good at learning by doing. I am good at working with my hands. I like to keep busy and I'm good at some sports. I am good at making things and drawing or designing with a pencil. I am an amazing visual hands-on learner. What is tricky for my brain is paying attention and staying tuned in during class time, especially when people are talking lots. Remembering what I see and hear. Sometimes when you don't tune in long enough and strong enough, it is hard to remember new things. So here are my ideas for school. Let me use a computer for writing and stories unless I feel like handwriting. Sometimes letting me talk while someone else writes it down works. Let me try this with keywords written down on a drawing, diagram, or chart. Talk less and show me more about what I am supposed to do. Give me things to look at when you are teaching or to help me remember. Pictures, maps, drawings, charts, notes, write it on the board, lists, computer programs, etc. Make sure I am tuned into you before you give important directions or information. You can use my name or say, "This is important." You can sit me up close. You can give me a good workspace without lots of junk or clutter. You can ask me if I understood it, and you can make sure I am looking at you before you start talking.
created using Powtoon.